around us, no matter where you look, whether it be on skyscraper or street sign. You'll find it on package design, flyers, billboards, everywhere. Now, the typefaces we use today might seem a little bit more simplistic than, say, 200-300 years ago. The complex detail that they used in their typefaces, I don't understand how they possibly had the patience to draw any of it. Now, we're lucky enough to have a lot of graphic programs that help us cheat just a little bit. In this documentary, we'll discuss typefaces between 1500 and present day. In the 1500s, during the Renaissance in Europe, interest in books, their design, and specifically the design of letters became a subject of study. During this era, painters and sculptors saw the patronage of the wealthy as commonplace, and they all worked for clients in order to earn a living. It is important to realize that artists of this period often created woodcuts for printing and did not see fine art, graphic art, and typography as the separate fields we perceive them as today. Type was seen as another artistic expression or avenue, one that could be analyzed, studied, and mastered like human anatomy, not simply as words on the page. Perhaps this is because these artists were in touch with hand lettering as an art, and they strove to be Renaissance men. The appearance of the Renaissance printed material reflected the artistic sensibility of the era. Gone were the dark, heavy borders filling every inch of available space that were popular in the hand-lettered text. Refined handwriting had become popular in the Renaissance as a sign of status. When a fancy script face was cut in copperplate, it was an instant success. Elaborate handwriting was a sign of being very well bred, so there were many handwriting masters at this time. Flourishes and curlicues with thick and thin strokes and the linking of letters were very popular. Everyday handwriting scripts were always different from the faces that were lettered in books. The advancement of typefaces and styles throughout the colonial and industrial revolution of the 1600s increased because of the introduction of mechanization of the printing process. Printers were credited during this time with proliferating concepts of freedom and liberty, which encouraged the revolutions and the establishment of some of the national governments that we know now. In type design, we witness a transition from clean, practical, readable text faces to ornate faces popular in the Victorian era, when type was used for early advertising as the Industrial Revolution surged forward, creating markets for mass-produced goods. Novels, journals, and political pamphlets were widely available to the emerging European middle class, and there was an unquenchable thirst for the printed word. Novels had a tremendous impact on the moral and cultural norms of this time. The 1700s is known as the Rococo period of design. The flowery, ornamented style of fashion and design reflected a monarchy who lived lavish lives of indulgence. The flamboyance of the style of the Rococo era was expressed as fine lines and curving flourishes. Copperplate engraving was better suited to this style than the rigidity of letterpress printing. In the 1730s, William Caslin, a goldsmith, designed a type named Old Face. This type style was an instant success in England. It was balanced in the proportioning of the letters. Caslin's design relied on some ancient inspiration as well. The characters had a slightly heavier weight to the thick strokes, which increased their legibility. Caslin's type became the standard of the era, especially for books printed in English. Both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were first printed in Caslin. John Baskerville perfected many elements of the printing process. He designed type, cast it carefully, refined the packing of the press, introduced a new smoother surface to paper, improved the design of the printing press, and refined the mixing of ink so he achieved a rich, almost purple black. The year 1820 could be considered the boundary between type functioning primarily for the dissemination of information and the use of type in display faces. Also at this point, the Industrial Revolution's impact on the printing industry was felt, and it became a more mechanized as opposed to a handiwork field. Because of the increase in printed matter, posters had to scream out their messages in a crowded visual environment. The classic typefaces designed for reading books were not suited for shouting about a merchant's wares. Soon, variations of fancy fonts became the norm in advertising, and large typefaces cut from wood were required for the increased size of headlines. Sans serif types were often incorporated into posters because they were thick and heavy and added blackness to the page, calling attention to the message. New type forms were developed for advertising with thick black strokes and a heavy slab serifs. This is one of the first times that the needs of advertising had an impact on the world of type design. Formerly, changes in typefaces were due to the limitations or freedoms allowed by the tools and materials at hand, printing considerations, or aesthetic judgments of the type designers. Now, advertising needs were determining the appearance of typography. The analytical phase was followed by synthetic cubism, in which stencil lettering, newspapers, labels, and other printed works were introduced into drawings and paintings to form collages. In these works, the printed material was used primarily for texture. It was not important how the type was positioned. Aesthetics, not communication, was the primary concern. Inspired by the Cubist collages, the Futurists experimented with arranging type from newspapers and magazines to form poems depicting the sounds of modern life. After the Second World War, there was a great demand for new typefaces, especially sans serif. In 1954, Adrian Frutiger, a Swiss designer living in Paris, created the Univers family of type, available in a wide range of weights and widths.